Story Corner, presented by Jennifer. Ferret in the bedroom, lizards in the fridge. Chapter 1. Boys are yucky. And furthermore, this is not the boys' gym. I will not have you behaving in an unbecoming manner like the boys do, nor will I have this room smelling like the boys' locker room. One or more of you have neglected your laundry. Miss Wimberly stopped pacing up and down between the benches. She turned to glare at each of us, like the guilty person was maybe supposed to fall on her knees and confess. Nobody moved, so Miss Wimberly went on with her lecture. In other words, ladies, somebody's locker stinks. S-T-I-N-K-S, stinks. I expect this room to be kept clean and neat. The smell in here is bad enough to gag a maggot. We giggled at the thought of something that smelled so bad it would gag a maggot. Only Miss Wimberly stared at us, so we shut up. As soon as homework period is over this afternoon, I expect each and every one of you to return to the gym and pick up your clothes and shoes. You will take them home and have them laundered. If you have leather tennis shoes, you will powder them instead of throwing them in the wash. She stopped to glare at us again. Do I make myself clear, ladies? Yes, Miss Wimberly. Sally leaned over. Is there such a thing as a female chauvinist pig? She whispered. I put my hand over my mouth to keep from giggling. What did you say, Sally? Miss Wimberly's voice boomed. Sally's eyes got so big I thought they were going to pop clean out of her head. She swallowed. Oh, nothing, Miss Wimberly. I was just, wishing Liz good luck on the election for class president. Huh, Miss Wimberly sniffed. She frowned at Sally, like she really wasn't sure she believed her, then turned and started pacing around the locker room once more. All right, ladies, enough chatter. It's almost time for the bell. Sally and I finished dressing just about the time the bell rang. We had to walk fast to get from the girls' gym to our homeroom before the tardy bell. You think Miss Wimberly is right? I asked, as we fought our way past the boys' water fountain. Sally shrugged. What do you mean? Well, you know, sort of strange or something. She shrugged. Nah, I don't think so. Tina Simmons rides the school bus, and she says Miss Wimberly and Mr. Evans are always flirting while they're watching the bus line. You know, they go around whispering and giggling at each other. Chuck Jenkins shoved Ted Bartson out of the locker section just as we walked by. I managed to block him with my shoulder before he stomped on my foot. As usual, Ted didn't bother to say excuse me. He just leapt back towards the locker section, trying to get a hold of Chuck. But how come she's always saying boys are yucky and preaching at us about how we should be ladies? Sally pointed her thumb at Chuck and Ted. Boys are yucky, that's why. Chuck and Ted were wrestling with each other. They were knocking their books around and bumping people in the locker section. I nodded. Yeah, I guess so. I think Miss Wimberly just wants us to be ladylike, Sally went on. She figures we're old enough to start acting more feminine. Gym teachers are supposed to teach you junk like that. It's a school rule or something. We squeaked through Mrs. Jones's door just as the tardy bell was ringing, and we managed to make it to our seats before it quit. Mrs. Jones always stood at the door a few minutes after the bell rang, usually waiting for Ted Barton. Sally's desk was next to mine. I leaned over and tapped her on the shoulder. Bet you a quarter, Ted's late again. Right then, Joe Donna Hunt stepped between us. Oh, Liz, she said, smiling that fake, twinkling smile of hers. I came back to wish you good luck on the election for class president. And I just wanted you to know that no matter who wins, I still think we should be friends. Her voice was so oozy sweet, it sounded like maple syrup plopping out of a tree. I tried to smile at her, only my teeth were kind of dry and my upper lip got stuck. I had to reach up like I was scratching my nose to get it loose. Jo Donna twinkled her eyes again, then pressed back towards the front of the class where her desk was. I shook my head. Now that's feminine, Sally laughed. I felt my lip curl, but this time it didn't get stuck on my teeth. If that's feminine like Miss Wimberly wants, I think I'll stick to climbing trees. We both laughed. Then the door slammed and Mrs. Jones went trotting across the room, right on Ted Barton's heels. Everyone got real quiet. Young man, do you realize that this is the 4th week of school? Ted gave her one of his dumb looks. He was good at that. And, Mrs. Jones went on, do you realize that of the 20 days we've had school, you've only managed to be on time for homeroom 5 times? Ted just kept looking dumb. This is your last warning, Ted. Next time I'll have to wait at that door for you. At that door and you come in late, we're heading straight for Mr. McDonald's office. Got it? Ted nodded. Mrs. Jones cleared her throat and walked back to her desk. Now then, we have about 15 minutes before the last bell. If any of you has some homework you want to get done so you won't have to do it over the weekend, now's the time to get after it. Mrs. Jones always gave us the last 15 minutes of homeroom on Fridays to work on our homework. The only thing I hadn't managed to finish in class was English. I opened my book and got my assignment out. I just started working on it when Mr. McDonald's voice came crackling over the intercom. Boys and girls, may I have your attention, please? I have just a few announcements. First of all, there will be no music class on Monday and Tuesday as Mr. Dalla has to work at the junior high preparing for a band concert. Second, teachers are to remember that October is Fire Safety Month. You need to make sure all your classes know how to exit each room and the building. We will be practicing our fire drills beginning next week. Also remember that our high school has a home football game tonight. Let's all be loyal supporters of the Chickasaw Public Schools and turn out for their game. Finally, I have the list of officers for the 6th grade class. My heart stopped. I felt a lump in my throat, and for a minute I didn't know if I could swallow. What's wrong with you? I fussed at myself. You know you didn't win. Not with Jo Donna running against you. Besides, there were 8 other people running for president. You know you didn't win. Just relax. Forget it. I told myself that, but I guess I wasn't really listening. I twisted and wriggled at my desk when Mr. McDonald announced that Lisa Timms had won treasurer. I chewed my eraser off by the time he announced that Tina Simmons was going to be the new secretary. And by the time he said that John Grisham was the vice president, I had my fingers so twisted in my ponytail that I thought I'd never get it loose. "Now for president," Mr. McDonald said. "It's about time," Sally whispered. "He spends longer talking on that intercom than it would take my grandmother to run the Boston Marathon." "Shush," I said, then held my breath. "For president." The intercom crackled. "We have a runoff. This is not surprising, since there were 9 people running for president. The 3 people in the runoff will be Jessica Harper from Mrs. Day's homeroom, Liz Robinson from Mrs. Jones' homeroom, and Sally let out a squeal and slapped me on the shoulder so hard I almost fell out of my seat. I shushed her again. "And last but not least, Joe Donna Hunt, also from Mrs. Jones' room." For a second, my heart had been pounding like the drums in the school marching band. But when Mr. McDonald said Joe Donna Hunt, my heart almost stopped. In fact, it sunk clear down to the bottom of my stomach. Everyone around Joe Donna was congratulating her. There was so much noise, I could hardly hear Mr. McDonald say that he was finished with all the announcements and that the people in the run-up would have 1 week to campaign and make posters, and the following week we would vote again. Mrs. Jones congratulated both Joe Donna and me and said something about how proud she was to have 2 of the 3 finalists in her room. Then she managed to get everybody hushed up and back to work. I was so mixed up inside I knew I couldn't work on my English, but I opened the book anyways. No sooner did I get the thing open than Mr. McDonald's voice came back on the intercom again. "Mrs. Jones?" She looked up from her desk to the speaker in the ceiling. "Yes, sir?" "We have a new student who will be in your homeroom beginning Monday morning. His name is Shane Garrison. His parents are here with him and would like to meet you and look over the school. Would you mind spending a few moments with them after the bell?" Mrs. Jones' nose wiggled as she stared up at the speaker. "No, I don't mind at all," she said politely. "Fine, I'll send them right down." "We'll need another desk," she said. This time, Mr. McDonald didn't answer. "We'll need another desk," Mrs. Jones repeated. "The room's full." Still nothing. She got up and walked over to punch the button on the intercom. Sally took the opportunity to lean over. "We're going to beat Joe Donna," she whispered. "I'm already getting ideas. We're going to beat her good." I looked Sally square in the eye, shaking my head. No way. "We can do it, Liz. Don't sell yourself short. I just know we can." Mrs. Jones got Mr. McDonald back on the intercom and told him about the desk. Then she waited at the door for the new boy. Sally was busy scribbling stuff on her notebook. I looked towards the front of the room. Joe Donna turned around in her desk and smiled one of her snotty smiles at me. I fought off the urge to sneer at her and smiled back. Mrs. Jones said hello to some people, but I didn't see them because they were out in the hallway. She visited with them a minute, then motioned someone into the room. "Boys and girls," she said to us, "I'd like you to meet our new student, Shane Garrison." "He's cute." I guess that was the first and only thought that went through my head. He was, too. He was tall, and he had the deepest, biggest, bluest eyes I'd ever seen. All I could do was just sit there with my mouth hanging open while Mrs. Jones talked to him. I didn't think anybody noticed, but all of a sudden, Sally reached across the aisle and put her hand under my chin and closed my mouth for me. I didn't even look at her, but I could feel my ears burning as they turned red. Mrs. Jones talked to Shane about changing classes and some of the activities and stuff at the intermediate school, and lunch count and tardy bells. As she talked, he looked around the room, smiling at the people with that handsome smile. All of a sudden, those big, deep blue eyes were looking straight at me. His eyes just stopped. From the front of the room, he stared straight at me. His eyes didn't travel on to anybody else. I just knew I was going to melt down to a little puddle on the floor beside my desk. It's the most wonderful day of my life, I thought. If I'd known how rotten the day really was going to turn out, I would have never thought that.